we look at our kids, we tend to compare them with others. So be very careful as parents what you are saying to your child. The most important belief that you can give to your child is just tell them that, hey, you are loved and that you are okay.
Hello and welcome to my show. My name is Rishanka Jones, and today I have with me Kanika Vasudeva. She's based out of Australia and is a radiant empowerment coach and an Akashic reader. Today, she's going to be talking to us about being a holistic parent and how we can raise emotionally mature kids. Welcome, Kanika.
Thank you so much, Rishanka. I'm so glad to be here.
Well, thank you so much for being on the podcast. And this is a topic that is so personal to me because I'm a parent and I'm constantly looking at resources because I feel like every year is so different with my children.
Absolutely.
All right. So to begin with, what do you think is um, the right way to raise emotionally mature children? And this may be a very heavy question for someone who's, say, 5 or 6, but I feel like the first 7 years are the most important ones when you kind of just really build that strong foundation.
I think that's an excellent question, and I wish more parents were asking this question because it does begin very early on. I often see clients do is that we look at our kids, we tend to compare them with others. We tend to see like this is the thing that they did not do, that they're not able to do, we need to push them and so on. Now my son, he was not able to hear when he was 2 years old. We did not know that he just had a hearing block. At about 3 years of age, we figured out that his hearing was blocked and he basically was not hearing anything. And then he was starting to make little bit, smaller sentences and so on. So he goes to school. By this time, his hearing has been corrected, that he's sort of lost a year of just listening to things. His vocabulary and also words, when they came to him a lot louder because suddenly hearing is opened up. So I remember this time when he first went to school and I said, hey, let's read the book. And he looks at me with his little eyes and he says, but mommy, I can't read. And he almost had tears in there. And it was a truth that he had taken inside, that I can't read, because he'd seen kids around him reading and he'd already made that his own. The first thing that I'll tell to parents is that wherever you're feeling the lack in your child, whether it is they're supposed to be normally at this bar and they're not there, whatever that is, or you want them to excel, especially the beginning years, you are your child's world. They're really looking up at you for their validation, for everything. So I remember taking him in front of the mirror then. I said, look, we'll stand in front of the mirror. We'll say here that I know how to read. And so we did that a couple of times before making him read, before even trying anything. I just said, we'll do this because whatever beliefs you ingrain in them, they're the ones that will come. So be very careful as parents what you are saying to your child. This is not to say that you can never make a mistake, because A, we can't be perfect even if we tried. But 2, you also want to give them an example that it's okay to be imperfect. You hold so much power as a parent. You could be strict, you could even give them that look, and automatically, even if they've not answered back, they'll know like, oh, something's wrong. You are their barometer where they're measuring whether they're okay or not. The most important belief that you can give to your child is just tell them that, hey, you are loved and that you are okay. That would be the foundation of raising empowered kids so that they're not feeling that lag.
I agree with you. I think as a parent, one holds so much power and children look up to you. So you kind of just have to live by example, I think, more than speak, right? But what I've noticed is sometimes children, when you say that, hey, you're loved, I love you irrespective of what you do, it's unconditional love, they tend to pick up on that and try to manipulate. What do you do in those situations?
It is such an excellent question, because that is also the question that every parent asks when you are listening to them, when you want them to be open, but you go like, well, right now it just seems as if there are literally no rules. They can just walk all over. And I think the underlying theme here is, as a parent, we then want to communicate our boundaries. And it's in new territory, right? It's different from how we've been raised. Then we are dealing with our own grief sometimes because we are missing certain things. We're going through our growth. So we are tackling that. And then we have these little people who just want to push the button, so to speak.
Yeah.
And what we have to still do in that moment is come up and explain to them in very clear terms what our boundaries really mean.
Yes.
So, see what your child is able to do, but negotiate with them. See what's allowed. Tell them that, in this house, this is the rule. And for every house, that's a little bit different. For every person, that's a little bit different. And clarify the definition of love as well. Just not giving them something that does not mean that they are not loved, because that's very false expectation and it's completely undoable. Love does not mean that. Love means that you want to see them, hear them, hold space for them how they are. You want to support them in their journey. Even if they fall down, you're willing to pick them up. You will be that non-judgmental guide and provider for them. That's your role as a parent. But it's nothing beyond that. That is the definition of love.
So, you're saying have boundaries with children and at the same time kind of tell them that just because I have boundaries doesn't mean I don't love you. You define the love that you have for the child and then work backwards from there. Related to that, a lot of children hold on to their emotions and at their best behavior when they're at someone's house, in school, or, in a setting that's not your house, basically. When they come back home, there's a full blowout of emotions, right? And sometimes they don't even know why they're crying. If you could help parents help their children to identify their emotions and then express it in healthy ways. I know your house is your safe space, your parents are your safe space, and you let your children just be themselves. But I also feel, again, coming back to boundaries, there's a certain decorum that children should follow instead of throwing things around. How do we teach our kids that?
Again, a lovely question. And I'll say this, that whatever is happening, whatever is triggering you, you are the center point. At some level, at a blueprint level, your spirit is operating in a way that you have something in you that brings the outside there. So, first of all, if you feel like their emotions are getting too much, check in with yourself, because why are you feeling that way? And it is not to say that kids are supposed to behave this way. Yeah, and here's the test for it. Let's say you're not feeling good with someone. I would just say name that emotion in different ways. And initially, when I started, I would just be able to say, I'm sad, I'm happy. I didn't know more emotions than that. I did not know sad, frustrated, angry. We might have a lot of times very, very basic vocabulary around emotions, like being able to differentiate, when am I feeling ashamed, when am I feeling apathy, when am I feeling other things. If you're not able to do that, first of all, that's for you to learn so that you can deal with those emotions. You can heal those emotions in you as well. And your kids are only going to pick up when you've got the words. We also tend to be a little perfect around our kids. Maybe we are rushing, but we want to feel like everything is in place, and we will not really tell them, oh, my day was overwhelming. But see if you can do that. It doesn't mean that you have to make them the parents you sharing about your life, because that's very critical for kids to understand. Often academics, school, sports, all of that will equip them with a lot of things, but life skills is what they're still learning from you. So we should tell them a little bit about our daily life. So this is what's happening. Age appropriate manner. You don't tell them the whole details, but you tell them at a bigger picture level that this is what is happening. And you might even just sometimes say, well, I'm very overwhelmed. I had such a hard day. I cannot think straight right now because I'm tired, because I'm physically feeling weak. But give them those examples, even if they're not picking it up, subtly they are. And then when it comes to working with your kids and giving them emotions or ways in which they can manage themselves, one of the ideas that I love is giving them like a happy bear and a grumpy bear on one side. So say, okay, I have this happy bear, and the happy bear wants all the happy emotions, and now I have the grumpy bear. And see where your kids at. Sometimes they need to be grumpy for a while. They need to lash out, they need to do that. You let the emotions out, the pressure is gone, you're actually free. You're not containing all of that. And then from the grumpy bear or the unhappy bear, the sad bear, you can move on to the happy bear.
Okay, so you kind of start with giving the child the grumpy bear. They kind of let their emotions out, hold the bear, Once they're feeling better, then you exchange and give the happy bear. Is that like a good way of handling
Yes.
emotions in a more
Yes.
like controlled environment, I think, right?
Yes, and if I could give an example, this is how the human body is, and I'm just showing a bottle up here because we have a container. Whatever size our container is, we have that much energy. Now, the water inside, that is like the life force, or let's say the joy, the passion that we have in life. And then the empty part in the bottle, but in our lives, would become the unhappy emotions. Stuff that we are trying to bottle down, stuff that we say, oh, this is never supposed to come out. Nobody's supposed to know. Sometimes we even deny it to ourselves.
Yeah.
But guess what? That takes space.
Mm-hmm.
And the more space it takes, your life juice, your happiness of life, that has lesser space. That's why it's such a healthy habit actually to teach them to release those emotions. If anything, your kids, when they're emotional, they're telling you that was the natural state where they have this unhappy stuff where they've had to hold it on together. Now they want to let it go. And in some way, we as adults need to learn from the kids to learn and let our harder, negative, heavier emotions go away.
Yeah, no, that makes so much sense. And that's so beautiful the way you put it with the bottle. This example of the bottle actually reminded me of an example that my child's teacher, she did an activity in their class where she made everyone fill a bottle and then fill it up with sparkle. And each one had their own sparkle bottles. And she said that every time you're upset or you feel like there's a lot of emotions building up, you take that bottle and you shake it really hard, and then the sparkles are going to start moving in the water, and that's how you should be, that's going to lighten up your mood. And I love that. And then my daughter and me, we kind of just made a bottle at home as well, and we use it very often to just get out of the negative zone sometimes. But thank you so much
I
for
love
that
that.
amazing advice. Moving on, Kanika, we kind of talked about, and I know this advice that you gave, it's for all kids of all ages. But let's talk about girls a little bit. Being a girl myself, I feel like your self-esteem is so fragile, right? How do we raise strong, independent girls with high self-esteem? We say that, okay, give them the independence, but the world is not ready for vocal women yet. I feel that. So if you could just give one or two strategies for parents who want to raise strong girls with high self-esteem.
This question is so close to my heart. So, so, so close. Because I was pregnant with my daughter a few years ago. And one of the things that was going on during that pregnancy was this thing that she's a girl, and how am I going to raise her as a happy person? You see, what I was discovering around that time was that I was very unhappy. I'd sort of followed the model. I had studied the way I was expected to, married, like followed, done all the checkbox things. I had ticked all of them. And yet here I was in my mid 30s and I was deeply unsatisfied with my life. And so I resonate with you when you say that girls, they can sometimes find that when they are speaking, it might not always be acceptable because you become the mom, you become the wife, you go, well, where am I? What happened to my voice? Who am I? But I'll give you good news. The earth's actually moving to a place where it's a lot more empowered now. And if you raise your girls, all the kids, by the way, any sex, if you raise them to be empowered themselves, if you raise them to find that, to be trusting for themselves, to have that deep inner faith in themselves, first of all, they'll know that they are good as they are. So the chances of alignment with someone who does not see their light, that's going to be a lot lesser because the world operates at a frequency. It's just a scientific thing. Wherever you are vibrating, whatever level you're vibrating at, that is the world that you're attracting. That is just a set law in the world, how it operates. But the more you raise your frequency, you also raise the people who are going to be with you. Now, in that, does that mean that you will still have some people who will try and dim your light and so on? That's okay. But you know what? When you are in your truth, when you are in your highest light, you will also find people who are happy to see you in your light. So rather than dimming are light, and I wish I could go back to myself and repeat this answer. We should raise girls who are really empowered, because think of the world, think of the impact on humanity. If they can rise, if they can speak their truth, their families and people around them will be able to accept that. The earth vibration, anyways, is moving to a 5D vibration. So we will have more truth, more harmony. And we're already starting to see a lot more women and a lot more of all the people who are really speaking their truth coming out in social media. We're seeing a lot more businesses becoming more holistic as well, thinking about the wider community. And it might not be visible in certain societies, communities as yet, but that is the change that is coming.
This is something I practice on a daily basis. I think I keep reminding myself that I need to be a more empowered person to have empowered girls. I need to basically live by example, be stronger, be happier, speak up for myself. And I feel like little kids just see what mom and dad are doing and kind of try to be them, right? Kanika, let's talk about teenagers. How does one prepare for the teenage years? There are very difficult conversations that parents need to have before, whether it's drugs, alcohol, being attracted to the opposite sex, exploring their bodies. So much is changing in their world, right?
Yep.
Do you think one, like a parent, should go through a therapist, like have these big conversations while a therapist or child therapist is sitting in the room, just so that there's a mediator and there's like less drama in the room?
I love that. Love that. And I think somewhere, what we are thinking is that we as the parents somehow have to hold all the answers. And I, as the parent, have to take care of a lot of things. But here's what I can tell you. Sometimes maybe we don't see the wisdom in our kids. Whatever age they're at, the conversation shouldn't begin at a particular age. Like, just be open. We often try and shield them from certain things, try not to talk about it. But I love the idea of a therapist. And this is where I would highly recommend parents to use a therapist, not with the child first, but you have a conversation with a therapist or another friend who you feel can really advise you in that sense. If you feel there is a difficult subject you want to talk about with your child, like in my life, I've had to have explained to my son that his dad had cancer. And so I wanted to have a conversation beforehand so that I was very prepared when I was doing that conversation. A lot of my clients, they might need to tell their kids about a possible separation or a divorce. And then it's good to talk it out with a therapist. The advantage with a therapist there is that depending on your child's age, they can then tell you that these are the possible ways in which your child might be thinking. Here are some questions, or here are some fears that they might have at this age. So it just helps you prepare.
I agree with that. And I have very open conversations with my daughter. Friendships, I feel, play a big role when you're a teenager. It kind of replaces your family in certain ways, right? You are not comfortable talking about certain things with your parents, your siblings. You want to talk about it with your friends. Why I want to focus on teenagers is because sometimes your child's company is not good. What can you do as a parent to make sure that your child is not in the wrong company?
Okay, so I'll share something that perhaps, first of all, might just relieve a lot of parents. We take on a lot of pressure as I'm the person who's supposed to look after my child. And yes, that's true. You're supposed to look after them in terms of providing for them, in terms of generally making sure that they are safe. But whatever every soul has to do on earth, that's already carved out. There's already a purpose why each one of us is born. There is a calling, and this calling is in their moments of happiness. What makes them happy? What is their joy of life? So that's already written down, regardless of how your child is, whether they are shy, whether you feel that they make the wrong judgment. Your job as the parent is to hold that space for them. And now, another food of thought that I'll give you here is that we tend to fuss a lot around the teenage years, and we tend to fuss that, oh, I wish they don't make a mistake. But wouldn't it be so good that if they, because we will all make mistakes, they will happen. We've made wrong choices. I can talk about me. I'm yet to come meet anyone who says, oh, I haven't made any mistake in my life. We
But
all
that's
do.
where the paranoia is coming from, right? You've
Yeah,
like fallen in the dump and you just don't want your kid to go through that.
exactly. But somehow We feel that my judgment, even though I made flawed judgments for myself, my judgments are still going to be better for my kid, better than what my child's going to judge for themselves. But let's say they are in their teenage and they do certain things, but you hold that non judgmental place for them. You don't come with a charge that this friend is wrong, this what you are doing is wrong. You hold the space for them, and I'll come to the energetic bit of that later as well. But you hold that space for them so that regardless of whatever they do, they feel safe coming back to you. But you know what? You're mine. I love you. Come on, that's okay. Let's just chat. Let's just do something else and we'll move on from there. Isn't it so much better if you're just able to hug them and you're really able to cry with them? Because it's going to happen anyway. Now, when I was talking about soul contracts, we also have contracts with our kids. We have contracts with every key relationship in our life, with our parents, with our partners. Sometimes these contracts can be old, very old. They're operating from past lifetime. Let's say your kids are your kids in this lifetime, but there could have been past lifetimes where there is just something else very negative that's impacting your current relationship. And that current still flows in your current lifetime. What you can do is you can look at the soul contracts and you can change, rewire that. When you're really worried for your child, you hold the space, you look at that space energetically, the bottle, you look at the energy of yourself, you clean that energy, you bring that in alignment with the natural flow, like you clean that as well. So imagine if your bottle was a little bit unclean, like it had some negative charge, that's obviously impacting the communication. But if you cleaned it, then you are talking from a non-fuzzy manner, like they'll be able to listen to you more, right? The same thing you can also do for them in an energetic space. But when you clean the space for them, it's like taking all the buzz, all the friction, all the noise out of it. So then when you see them person to person. I'll give you examples, maybe that will make it clearer. If you look at even electrical appliances in your house, let's say a toaster, a kettle, everything has an earthing wire. The purpose of the earthing wire is that when there is a false negative charge, it just drains that out. Humans walk around without an earthing wire. So, what you're doing for yourself is that the extra heavy emotions, or maybe the anger, frustration that you're feeling, when you ground, you let that go. So, you're able to approach them from a much calmer place. Same way, when you do it for them, and you don't even need to talk to them at this stage, when you drain that extra charge out, then the thoughts or the influence that they had from another friend, from the media, all that negative charge, the negative interference just gets automatically drained out. You're talking spirit to spirit then, where they're able to listen to you more. It's a more direct conversation. It is not going through some other channels.
But how do you ground yourself and how do you clean that energy? What are those one or two practices that one can do to clean it out?
Okay, let's do that. And I love this because I wish everybody in the earth knew about these.
Has a grounding wire.
Yeah. So, grounding, as I gave the example, is this simple technique where whatever is making you feel heavy, that goes away from your space. All you're doing is you're just connecting with Mother Earth. We even call her Mother Earth because she holds that unconditional place for all of us. So just imagine wherever you're sitting or you're walking, you just imagine that your legs, they're getting longer and longer, and you can imagine that they're going all the way to the center of the earth. That's the heart of Mother Earth. That's where her purest unconditional love is. And that's that place where when you just imagine that connection, because all she's waiting from you is just that reminder, that consent, that, hey, I'm happy to let go. Just put them away right to the center of the earth. And she's going to purify the energy, make it pure positive, send it out to where it needs to go. So you instantly start feeling better, just calmer yourself.
This is a strategy for the parent, right? What do you do for the kid? Like, how do you kind of help the child to balance their energy?
Yes. So, same things that you're doing for yourself, you can do the same balancing thing for the child as well. When you feel like they're not really listening to you, you can have in your closed eyes. So you're just looking through your mind's eyes, closing and looking at two containers. One container was for you, one container is for your child. For your container, you're grounding. For their container, you're grounding them as well. Because what you do when you ground them is you give them permission to be them as well. And this we talked about releasing. There's a good way of just reconnecting yourself with the life force as well. Just filling that whole space up, because now you've drained out the negative charge. And so you imagine the sun on top of you. You imagine a nice gold shower coming into your body, coming into your whole
This is the
space,
second
all
strategy.
around you.
This is the second strategy that you
Second strategy, and I would complement, I would do both of them,
together.
because this is how you're filling in yourself. When you're connecting with the sun, you're actually getting a lot more guidance. You could say the sun, you could say God, you could say universe, you could say source, whatever you are most resonant with. But you bring in that gold light, because this is the guidance that you are meant to follow. The guidance that you're getting then is going to be just more aligned with the benefit, with the highest good of your child as well. The other thing, if you wanted to even take it further, is let's say you want to tell them that, this friend, I don't like this friend, and you should stay away from that friend. So you've got these two containers. Now you're taking the friend and you were just telling your child that I don't like this friend. But you're talking spirit to spirit. When you are in that meditative state, when you're looking at both the containers, you'll actually see the answers that come at that point in time. They're very different. You're talking to them at a spiritual level. The funny thing is, you don't even need to have a conversation. And if you're doing it right, you'll already have the conversation with them without needing to do it in words. You'll see that it just plays out by itself. There's so many times when I've done this, when my clients have done this, where I've done it and done something with someone, gone to sleep, and next day the things just changed totally without me having to do it in person.
So just to summarize this, one is where you kind of just sit yourself on the chair, imagine your legs going down all the way at the center of the earth, and kind of just releasing all your thoughts and worries and anxiety, pushing it down into Mother Earth, and then just feeling like you've released it. The second one you suggested is imagine a light or your God or sun on top of your head, releasing a golden light into you, right?
Bringing that in, bringing that everywhere in your body, noticing where perhaps you're blocking it, but just letting that come, because you're allowing divine guidance to come into you.
Okay. And while you're doing that, you kind of just talk through your worries and communicate that telepathically with your child.
Yes. So after you've cleaned yourself, healed yourself, so now you're talking from a pure spirit perspective to the pure spirit of your child as well. We feel some things are good and some things are not good for your kid. We don't always know the soul story. Sometimes they're supposed to fall down in a certain way, what seems to us like falling down. But that might not be a falling down. Maybe they're supposed to have that lesson because this is what they've been wanting to do. And you're able to see that. You're able to see and understand why they are with a friend, what is the bigger lesson that they're going to learn there, what are they going to learn out of it, how are they going to come out. But the more you do that, you'll also release yourself from the worry of a parent. You hold space for yourself, clean up the space. You hold space for yourself means you act out of divine guidance, and then you hold space for them so that they can be in the divine alignment as well, and then you don't need to worry anymore.
Kanika, we've kind of taken it from holistic parenting to spiritual parenting to the divine. And I just love this because I think so many of us get so caught up in following the rule book on do this, don't do that. And I think it's all internal. You kind of just meditate and be spiritual and connect with the divine, and things fall in place. So for that really, really lovely advice.
Thank you so much.
Kanika, thank you so much. I have thoroughly, thoroughly enjoyed this podcast, and I'm taking back so much from you today, especially, all the spiritual practices. What is one piece of advice you would like to give all parents of kids of all ages?
The bigger question that I'm hearing from everyone is that they are really wondering, well, how do I do all of this? How do I feel that I am worthy? I mean, at one level, it's okay to understand it's all taken care of. But, in normal day-to-day life, it feels like, what do you mean I'm taken care of? My life sucks right now and I worry for my child. Think for a moment that you are the small person who's come on earth. You're very tiny compared to the size of the earth, and yet you have this whole everything's running around you in a certain way. You don't understand why you have the same patterns again, why you have the same problems again. Then start thinking that this tiny person that you are, that you have this universal flow flowing through you, all the celestial beings or your gods, divine, they're there. And whenever you are ready to talk to them, they are more than ready to talk to you. They're actually so busy trying to help you every single moment. You're worthy. Even if you feel like something's off, even if you're looking at others and you're feeling like, something's off in me, or I'm the one lacking here. You are divine yourself because divine light is flowing through you. Your kids will be okay as well because there is divine light flowing through them. The more you want to connect to this, just connect with the universal flow. Just please, I encourage you to try grounding. Even if you're skeptical, try grounding. Try connecting with the sun and just see how you feel. Nothing else. Just see how do you feel. And if it feels okay, feels a little bit better, maybe try it again.
Thank you so much, Kanika. What is the best way to reach you if anyone was to reach out to you?
Yes, thank you. So I can be reached at artoflifecenter.com/call. So this is where you can actually reach out to me. You can book a free clarity call with me because I love to understand where you're at. And I want to give you a picture of why those energetic things are happening in you. The other way to reach me is on Instagram or on LinkedIn. I can be found at Kanika Energy Coach.
Thank you so much, Kanika. This has been wonderful.
Thank you so much, Rishanka. I enjoyed every single minute here.
Awesome. Well, if you enjoyed this podcast, please like, subscribe, and share. And if you want to get in touch with Kanika, check out the description section for all her details. Until then, this is Rishanka Jones signing off.